All right. It's time for the exciting part of the night, y'all. You got through it. You got through it. Welcome, welcome. I don't think we didn't realize there was going to be a video. We thought we were going to send Sophie off the stage, but that's okay.
All right.
All right, well, my name is Paul,
And my name is Stian.
and it's time for...
You in action!
Wrong.
I know, it's not time
It's
for
like
that.
You guys don't even read the packet. It's time to get practical. All right? So let's lock in and talk about some of the practicals that you should think through about your finances.
All right. So the title of this talk is called S&P 500 Pizza Practicals. If you don't know what the S&P 500 is, it's an index fund that tracks the top companies. And our initials are S&P, and maybe there's 500 of you, so boom, that's the title of this talk. But Paul and I, we currently teach the Apprentice Financial Stewardship class, and so we know a little bit about money and financials.
Just a little bit.
Enough
Please. For us to be up here.
Exactly. But by no means are either of us financial advisors or have financial degrees. So,
Correct.
Grain of salt.
All right, well, let's just jump into it then. The first thing that we want to talk about is you need to think through how much money you get. I think a lot of times when we talk about this, people think about having a job, and they're like, well, I don't have a job, so I get nothing. Well, there are other ways for you to get money. Say your parents maybe give you an allowance, or if you have financial aid or took out a loan, it's just like what kind of money is coming into your bank account. And that's typically, when I think through a budget, it's like, okay, what is coming into a bank account after all of your taxes and deductions and all that stuff that you have. And if you don't have a bank account, just a quick plug, you should probably get one now. And if you need help with that, ask any of your pastors. Don't ask me.
Yeah. So the next thing that you're going to look through is how much you spend. So this is anything that is going out of your bank account, right? So, you know, maybe the thing that you see most is your subscriptions. Maybe you got Hulu or Netflix, or maybe you have Amazon Prime or Spotify. Whatever that is, if it's coming out of your bank account, you are spending it. So you want to be tracking some of your regular charges. But on top of just subscriptions, you have to think about rent and utilities. You know, if you live in an apartment on your own or with roommates, how much are you spending on that? Maybe you pay for car insurance, or you maybe pay for your phone, or you have an auto loan. So again, tracking all of the things that you're spending. And then the next thing, obviously, is food. All of us have to eat. And so this is probably where some of you should really look, is how much are you spending on all your eating? Someone's trying to airdrop me stuff, so chill out. Right, but this isn't just eating out. This is also groceries. But this is another category that you can track. What am I spending my money on? And then lastly, you know, it could be fun items like clothing or sneakers. Maybe you're into Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh. Are y'all old enough for Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh still? I don't know. Anyways, I know some of you are really into buying little figurines and painting those for your fictional armies. So that also qualifies as spending.
Yeah. And also, when we talk about spending, a lot of the things that Stan talks about is things that you might spend every month. So again, that's eating and gas and stuff like that. But there are some months that you might spend more and some months that you might spend less. Like Christmas. I bet every December, your budget, if you have a budget, might look really crappy in December. But these are things that you can always keep in mind when making a budget of like, okay, yes, like I know some months are going to be really bad. But the biggest thing to do when thinking about your spending is if you just look to the past. So look at a previous month. So right now it's February. So if you look at January, just look at what you spent and see, oh, like how much did I spend on like food? How much did I spend on gas? And maybe you bought buy prescriptions every month. Things that you might forget if you're just going off of head knowledge. If you look at your bank account, it'll be like everything that you actually spent on. And then one thing to note is that I know a lot of you guys think of like Venmo or Cash App as free money. I definitely thought about that for a while. It's like, oh, I'm gonna eat out and I'm gonna Venmo my friend, and that was a free meal because, I don't know where that money came from, and who knows? I don't care that it's gone. But for the sake of budgeting, you should always cash out that money into your bank account when you get it. And then when you spend it from your bank account, not from your Venmo balance, because then you have a record of everything that's going on. So just be on the lookout for that.
Yes, do that. Next thing is, how much do you save? Are you saving at all? That might be a question for some of you. Right? Do you have money left over at the end of the month, or are you spending it all, or are you living paycheck by paycheck? Yeah, I think the obvious thing that people save for is for emergencies, and the general consensus with savings is usually having to about 3 to 6 months worth of like essential expenses saved for emergencies. So maybe not your like largest budget that you spend in a month, but like if I break it down to just the essentials of what I need, 3 to 6 months of that. And while I'm not sure if we're all quite there yet, being able to save up 3 to 6 months worth of expenditures, I do think a general rule for y'all can be $1,000 to $2,000. I think that's a pretty it's a lot easier goal for y'all to shoot for. And right, this savings is for unexpected and typically large expenses and emergencies that come up. Not like, oh wow, I have $1,000 in my emergency savings. Six Flags sounds fun. Not an emergency. Not an emergency. But yeah, something that people think about less often are the expected expenses that are not monthly. Again, this is for things that you don't pay for monthly, but you know that eventually you are going to have to pay for that thing. So in the instance of your car, if you drive a car, every year, when that little sticker on your car window.
And you better renew that thing. Come on,
you
guys.
better.
Some of y'all are rocking like 2022 stickers.
Dude, I've got 6 days myself. But every year, you are going to have to renew that registration. So why don't you save $80 so that you're not like, oh no, I have to pay for my registration? I didn't know that. You did, because last year, you paid for it. The other thing is things like tires, right? You're going to have to, or you should replace your tires like every couple of years, or if you're me and my wife, like every couple of months. But, save money, I know. Save money so that those expenses don't come out of nowhere. You actually have money saved away because you're expecting that type of expense.
Yeah, I have a friend who texted me one day, like pretty much out of the blue, was like, Paul, you'd be so proud of me. I paid for an oil change today, and I saved for it. Like, I didn't spend any of my regular spending money. And I was like, I am proud of you. That is a good deal. But again, like I was saying earlier, like Christmas, if you spend every Christmas, you can plan for that throughout the year. So instead of December, you're like, oh, I'm like $600 down the hole. It's like, okay, well, what if we do like $50 a month towards Christmas? If you want to go on a trip, if you like vacations and stuff like that, you don't have to, again, go take out a big loan or put it all on a credit card. You can be saving for that.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know exactly what you're going to spend it on, like if you might have a dental procedure somewhere in the future, you might have a small medical expense in the future. Say you get the flu and you want to go in and get tested for stuff. Those are things that you can save for that you might not know exactly when you're going to spend it, but you will probably spend it sometime.
Yeah.
Some other things you can think about saving for are like fall camp, winter retreat. Maybe your campus does a Christmas party every year or an end of year celebration. You can estimate high. And if you have extra money, great. You can give it to a scholarship or you can put it towards something else. And when like if there's some students that might not be as financially blessed, and so you can plan to save for that and then give it for like scholarships and people like that. But a lot of times when I think of financially blessed in my mind, I immediately start thinking of Scrooge McDuck diving into a pool of like gold coins. And I'm not sure if many of you guys get that reference, but for the ones that do, you know what I'm talking about. But there's a mindset in the world, I think, that when you finally like make enough money, I finally made it, then I'm gonna be generous. But that's not really how it works. It's like what Shannon was talking about. It's just, yeah, like the more you make, the better you are at spending it.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a never-ending cycle of like, oh, I'll never have enough unless you choose to have enough right now. And that's why we emphasize making a habit to give, being wise with your money now, because if you make it a habit now, when you have more, you'll be wise with your money then as well. And then just a small note, some of y'all, your parents still cover everything, and that's great. My dad still pays for my cell phone bill, and some people laugh at me, but I'm like, that's great with me, like, please. He asked me one day, he goes, well, I asked him, I said, do you want me to pay the cell phone bill? And he goes, do you want to? And I said, no. And he said, great. And I said, great. And that's where we are now.
Dang. I should have that conversation
but
with my
something
dad.
like that, you can talk to your parents about that. Like maybe they do cover everything, but you could cover like a small expense that you expect. You can talk to them and be like, hey, like I want to cultivate this this habit of being wise with my money and saving to spend. I would like to actually like take on the burden of paying this bill. And so in Luke 16:10 it says, whoever is faithful with little will also be faithful with much. And so just whatever you start doing now, it'll start paying dividends in the future as well.
Yeah. So that brings us to giving. How much do you give? Right, any type of giving, it can be towards Focus or your church or a nonprofit. It can be to a homeless person, or maybe you've got a friend who's in financial need. Right, I think for a lot of us, this tends to be the last thing that we think about in terms of giving. But I think that brings up a good question of like, when it comes to giving, are you giving your first fruits to God? Or are you just giving the leftovers? All right? I know that when Caroline and I make our budget, it was really impressed onto us that giving should be the first thing that we budget for. Not what's left over, but rather make that one of the expenses per month that comes out first before things like eating out. Hello. You might notice that we are no longer at Pizza Theology, and that's because the camera died. We lost power to it. Something happened. So now we're here with a beautiful gray wall background to finish the rest of our talk.
Yep.
So I was talking about giving. And so I'm going to try to pick up where I was. So I think I was talking about something along the lines of like, make the first of your budget when you're making make giving the first part rather than just the leftovers that come at the end of the month. I think it's very easy to see what's left over at the end of your budget and make that your giving. But we want to encourage you to make giving the first part of what you make in your budget rather than just what's left over. Because it's better to give the first fruits of what you get rather than just the excess and what's left over to God.
Yeah, and then one thing I also ask myself a lot when making the budget is, am I saving to give? And I know we talked about saving a little bit earlier, but giving is also something that you can save for. So a lot of organizations like Focus might have an annual fundraiser, typically at the end of the year, maybe around Giving Tuesday, which is around the end of November, beginning of December. And that me and my wife, we save all year to make one larger contribution towards that at the end of the year. And so, yeah, it's not always like I need to give away everything that I've saved for giving every month. It's like, no, I can save, I can plan ahead towards something that I want to give more money towards.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll mention with giving is, if you find yourself at the end of the month, if you forgot to give what you budgeted, so let's say your budget was $50 for giving and you accidentally forgot and you only gave $25. What I would encourage you to do is, rather than keeping that $25 for yourself, roll it over into the next month. So that month give 75 because you forgot to give that 25 the last month. So that's kind of a little bit of saving and giving. So let's get into kind of the nitty gritty of making your own budget. So first thing is first, when it comes to making a budget, what we want to talk about is that making a budget is not about restricting yourself. It's all about freeing yourself from the guilt of spending money that you have. So instead of not knowing how much money you've spent on eating out or shopping and feeling bad afterwards for spending that money, a budget allows you to say, hey, I do have this money, so I am going to go out with friends to CC's or wherever else you want to go. And then the second thing that we'll say just in this talk is that we want to dispel the myth that you can't talk about your money with other people. It's deeply ingrained in our culture that you should not talk about your money. You shouldn't talk about how much you make or how much you spend. And so we want to just get rid of that. If you want to be financially smart and a good steward of your money, you are going to have to talk about it at some point in your life with somebody. So don't let that barrier be something that keeps you away from actually opening up about your financial situation with other people.
Yeah. So when making a budget, you kind of just follow the blueprint of the questions that we just asked earlier. So how much do you earn? How much do you get? If it's inconsistent, when you budget, you want to make sure you're budgeting for like a more scarce month, if that makes sense. So the months that you make less, just so that when you do make more, you're happily surprised that you have more money to spend, instead of budgeting for when you have the most money, and then when you have a scarce month, you're like, I don't know how to make ends meet. And so I also tell them when I'm meeting with people to make a budget to give me your ideal numbers. And so instead of starting with like, I make $1,000 and I need to make sure like my eating out plus my shopping plus my groceries adds up to 1,000, I'm saying, no, like, how much ideally do you want to spend on eating out? Let's start there. Let's go through the entire thing. And then if your ideal numbers exceed how much you get, then we'll start trimming. But if you trim as you go, it's just going to be a big mess, because you might trim less on the categories that you like thought about first. And then towards the end, you're like, okay, well, I have $30 left over for groceries, and so I guess I'll spend $30 on groceries.
Yeah, it's like, then you don't need to.
Yeah, exactly. And then also when trimming, something to keep in mind is that you have essential expenses and you have sort of just those extra expenses. And so an extra expense might be if you buy V-Bucks, or if you buy a lot of products advertised on TikTok or anything like that. Those are definitely extra expenses that you don't need to live. But then there are essential expenses like rent or making a car payment, car insurance. Those are things that you need in order to, I don't know, go to school or go to your job. But then also, just because something is essential doesn't mean you get a blank check to spend however much you want to spend on that.
Yeah.
Because those are typically the expenses that you have the most leeway in cutting. And so, for example, when thinking through where you want to live, do you have to live by yourself in your own apartment? Or can you share an apartment with someone? Or can you even share a room in an apartment with someone?
Yeah.
Those things can drastically reduce the amount of budgeted money you need for rent. For example, for me, when I was in college in Seattle, I lived in a studio apartment with 3 other people. So it's 1 room, 3 people, and we paid $500 per person, which was very cheap back then. I think it's still pretty cheap. I guess it's more cheap now.
Yeah.
But that's what I had to do because I wanted to make sure that I was paying little for rent in that time of my life. I also did 8 guys in a 5-bedroom apartment that had 2 bathrooms. And so if you can imagine that. And the living area, like the living room, was the same size as like a 1-bedroom. But again, it was a 5-bedroom. And so it was kind of cramped in there. But again, you have to do what you got to do. I also had a friend recently who traded in her car for a different car so that she had a lower monthly payment on that so that it fit her budget.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like stuff with eating. Of course, you need to eat to live. I would recommend everyone eat. But do you need to eat out every meal, or can you meal prep, or figure out what kind of cheap meals you can get here and there so that you're not spending like $1,000 on eating out every month.
Yeah. So when making your budget, you can be as broad or as narrow as you'd like it to be. Remember, this is a tool that's made for you. And so we want you to make something that you're actually going to use. There's no point in making a budget that is either way too broad or way too narrow that you never check and that you don't use. Like, we want you to make the budget that you'll actually keep up with. So for example, like instead of, for a narrow budget, instead of just a broad eating out category, maybe you want to break it down into like, no, this is my coffee budget. This is my boba budget. This is my, what else? My Chick-fil-A. I mean, if you got a Chick-fil-A budget, you are definitely going into a narrow budgeting. I mean, we have a friend who has a specific coffee budget, and she has overspent on that budget lately. And so what a narrow budget allows you to do is say, like, does she need to stop eating out, or does she need to stop buying so much coffee? So when you narrow the budget down more, you can kind of get a grasp on, do I need to spend less money in this broad category or specifically in this area? Or instead of shopping, you can break it down into clothing or games or decor. Again, whatever works for you. If you find yourself consistently buying in those categories, then maybe you do need to break it down and see, am I spending more in these sections than in others, so that you can adjust. So you can break it down specifically, or you can break it down into broader categories. And this is the way that I personally like to budget. I think I manage money a lot better when I can just kind of weave in and out with different expenses and just put it into a broad category and limit myself that way. And that works for some people, and that doesn't work for other people. Some people track every single cent that they spend, and that is a nightmare to me. And I don't want to track every single cent. But with a broad budget, at the end of the month, my question is, did I overspend in my total budget? If I did, I can look at the categories and go back and look at the different expenses that I spent and say, okay, like I definitely need to pull back on groceries because maybe we're buying things that's like we don't really need that, or eating out. I'm like, okay, I noticed I went to not like restaurants, but I got coffee. Not that I drink coffee, but I was spending it here, and so I need to take that back. And the last thing with that I'll say is actually keep up with your budget. Your budget is completely useless if you don't keep up with it and you can't actually track your spending. So a lot of the times you'll see people get into like, what is this $13.80 charge from Walmart? I mean, I do this like a week later. I'm like, what was that purchase? And so it's hard to categorize things when you're not consistently looking at it. You don't have to be a person that looks at it every single day, 5 times a day. But I mean, once a week, every other day, once every 3 days, whatever that is for you, do it consistently. Don't get to the end of the month and not categorize things to where you're like, I don't know what this Walmart purchase was.
Yeah, and if you're married and have combined finances, it's even more important to look at it together, and often so that there's no confusion, because your spouse is going to spend stuff, you're going to spend stuff, who spent what, where, when, I don't know, it just gets very confusing. So if the technology is there'll probably be a little slide somewhere showing my text with my wife that I have included in here, just about how she keeps up with me on what I spend. And so a little backstory is I spend money for Focus a lot on behalf of Focus, and so I had purchased a domain for Focus is like utdfocus.org, and it was for $7.15, and literally I spent it, and 9 minutes later she texted me going, what is this charge? It probably wasn't that aggressive in reality, but it's kind of like, what is this charge? And I'm like, oh shoot, like I spent that 9 minutes ago, that's for Focus.
Yeah.
And then another text from her, I had spent 21 cents at Walgreens for a photo for a friend. It was for her passport because I was helping her apply for a passport. And later that day she goes, what is this charge? And I was like, oh, it's a gift, don't worry. That was me. And then also there was another charge for $5.75 at something called Dallas Superstore. And even that, like, she'd asked me the next day, and I was like, I don't remember. And I was like, oh, wait, no, that was the grocery store. It was a new grocery store that I had never been to, really. And so that just goes to show you, like, if you don't check it often enough, you're going to get confused. If it was not the next day, I probably would not know what that charge was. And just the other day when I was getting gas, I literally had the gas nozzle in my car, and she texts me. She goes, are you getting gas? And I go, yes, I am. You can categorize that as gas. Don't worry.
I love it. And keeping track with some of these expenses can you can also relate it to, like, your subscriptions that you get charged for. I mean, plenty of stories out there of people who have been subscribing to things that they had no idea.
Yes.
Like, I think the one that I hear consistently, maybe not by a lot of people, but it's like Fabletics. They had the monthly, like, VIP membership, and a year later they realized that they've been paying $60 a month.
Oh.
For a service that they never use. So again, like, when you keep track of your transactions, you can see if, like, oh, shoot, like, I'm still subscribing to that thing that I have not used in weeks or months. Yeah. So keep up with what you use. And the easiest way to do that we recommend with making and keeping a budget is use some sort of budgeting app. There are a lot of different apps nowadays that will actually do the tracking for you. They're not perfect, but there are really helpful apps that you put in your banking details, your credit cards, your debit cards, and it will do the tracking for you. It's not going to always get it right. You'll have to go back and kind of recategorize some things sometimes. But again, this is a big part of why budgeting has become so much easier for the both of us, is that I don't have to go into a spreadsheet and manually enter in all my transactions. If I had to do that, I would not budget at all. So the app that I use, my wife and I use, is called Monarch. And yeah, basically it allows you to categorize your different spending buckets based on the total that you make in that month. So Monarch, I would say, is an app that's better for people who have a consistent income. Maybe it's not the same thing every single month, but for me, like, I get paid a salary, and so I know every month this is how much I'm making each of these paychecks. My wife is hourly, but her hours are consistent, and so again, I'm like, yeah, we're making about this much every month, and so then we take that total amount that we make, and we go through the different categories of, like, yeah, we want to spend this much on groceries and this much on eating out, and this much, is our rent, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, me and my wife, we use YNAB, which stands for You Need a Budget. The thing about YNAB that's a little different, like Stian was saying with Monarch, is that with Monarch, you kind of budget before you get the money. So you're saying, I expect this much money to come in, and so I expect to be able to spend this much on eating out. But with YNAB, you budget after the fact, so to speak. And so I'd still put eating out $300, but when I spend on YNAB, it'll give me $0 to spend on eating out until I get money. Say I get, $200 in income. Then I can say, I want to put $100 that I just got into my eating out budget, and now I can spend $100 on eating out. And so I can only spend what I have just received, whereas some apps you can spend before you receive it if you expect to get it in the end.
Like we said, there's a bunch of different apps that you can check out. Monarch and YNAB are just two of them that we're familiar with and we use. But for YNAB, I tried it. It doesn't. My brain doesn't work like that. I'm like, just give me an idea of what I can spend, even if I don't have the money right now. I know I will.
Right. And I work with a lot of people about their budget, and I typically recommend Monarch at first because it is how most people think and a lot simpler to use.
But like Paul said, like if you are someone who does not have a consistent income every single month, then apps like YNAB are a lot easier to be like, oh, this is how much money I actually have right now.
Yeah, and there are so many other apps out there. There are also things that are not apps, like the cash envelope system, where at the beginning of the month you say you have $300 for eating out, and so at the beginning of the month you pull $300 of cash out, put it in that envelope, and then you just bring that envelope with you when you eat out, and you spend the money from the envelope. And once the money's gone, you can't eat out anymore because you literally don't have money in the envelope anymore. There are apps. There's one called Qube, Qube. It's a digital cash envelope, so they send you a debit card, and you, in the app, choose, like, I'm going to spend from my eating out budget. And so the debit card has $0 on it until you choose eating out, and then it'll load your digital cash onto the debit card so that you can spend it.
Yeah.
And then it'll pull from your eating out budget specifically.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have a bank account or are looking for one, like we were saying earlier, everyone should probably be thinking about having a bank account by now. One that you can consider is Ally Bank. The helpful thing about Ally Bank is that they have some budgeting stuff built into their bank app already. And so you don't need a separate budgeting app if you don't want to. They also have something called buckets in their savings account. And so if you have one savings account, but you want to save for vacation and you want to save for new glasses, you can put it all into the same savings account. But on the savings account, there'll be buckets saying like, oh, of the $1,000 in my savings account, $800 of it is towards my vacation savings and $200 of it is towards my glasses savings. And so that's one way you can categorize it and keep it all straight in your head without having to actually create like 10 billion savings accounts that you probably can't keep up with.
Yeah.
And again, like Stan was saying, the advantage of an app really is that they load your transactions for you as long as you've connected it to your bank account. And so you don't have to manually go in and say, on Tuesday I went to Walmart and it was $18.57.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the month you're like, something's wrong because you actually spent $18.75.
Yeah.
And so it's just one way to get rid of that and also make it a little easier for you to look at.
And same thing with those apps that will help you subdivide your total savings. Again, it allows you to look not just at the total number, because I can get that way sometimes where I'm like, do I have enough in my savings for that? And I look at the total number, and in my head I'm like, yes, I do. It just helps, again, to be like, no, I'm saving specifically in this area for vacations or new tires or whatever that is. It just allows you to really get a closer, more narrow look at what's actually in your savings rather than just a broad one.
Yeah. And so, again, with the use of technology, maybe you'll see our budgets here. But you can see in my budget, my wife loves budgeting for boba because she loves drinking boba as much as she can, but in a realistic amount so that we're not spending millions of dollars on boba. But that's important to her, and so we budget for it specifically. We don't tie it into our eating out budget. And then in the transportation section, you can see that we are budgeting for monthly expenses like gas, but we are also budgeting for yearly expenses like registration and insurance. And then in the next slide, you see that we have our giving. And at the very bottom, I believe at the very bottom, it should say like giving to KFG. And so again, we have our giving, monthly giving, but then the giving to KFG is our annual giving. And so we'll save it over the time of an entire year. And then on entertainments, like we were saying, you can go narrow or you can go broad. My wife likes to go narrow so that she knows exactly what subscriptions we have. And so we have Hulu, we have AMC, we have Peacock. And so that way, instead of being like, oh, we're spending $30 on subscriptions, whatever, it's like, no, like we have a Hulu subscription. We need to use it or lose it. Yeah.
And then, again, wherever it is on the screen, if it's on the screen.
Over your face.
Yeah. My wife and I's budget is a lot more broad. We just have general categories. You'll probably see, like, here's our total income that we expect this month. Here's how much we how much we spend in auto payments. I think it's like eating out is next, and groceries. and toll tags or stuff like that. So instead of doing a narrow budget like Paul and Stephanie do, where it's like Boba, Hulu, those aren't in the same category, but you know what I mean, Netflix, we just have a general of like, yeah, like we have, I think maybe $50 a month for subscriptions. And so typically the reason I just do a general is because I know what subscriptions we have. We keep up with them enough to where I know at the end of the month, this is how much in subscriptions that we pay. And unless someone opens up a Netflix in my name with my information, we are going to spend $50 in this category. It can get a little bit trickier with like groceries. So sometimes I'm lazy and my entire Walmart purchase goes into the groceries, even though I might have bought a shirt in that. I'm like, sure, I'll put it in groceries. But again, this is what works for you. My brain works more in the general, and it's too much effort to subdivide and be super specific. But what works for you? Okay, so that's your budget. Again, if you have any questions about any of this, please reach out to your campus pastors. Sadly, you can't talk to us. I mean, you could. You could if you see us somewhere.
If I'm still around.
If we're still around.
Just kidding.
We can answer any questions, or they can answer any questions that you have. So the next thing that we want to talk about is we want to touch on credit cards. So there is a lot of fear behind credit cards, and I know some people have family, whether that's siblings or your parents who were bad or are bad with credit cards. Some people in this room, you know that you shouldn't be. This room. Sorry. I forgot. We're no longer in the auditorium. Some people watching this video, maybe you are a person that should not be trusted with a credit card. And believe me, credit card debt can be very debilitating. I don't have the numbers, but I would not be shocked that the numbers are very high of the people in the United States who find themselves in debilitating credit card debt, because it just can be very easy to get into. So we want to touch on the bigger points of it. We're not going to get too specific on anything. But the first thing that we want to say with credit cards is it is not free money.
That's correct.
That is probably the number one reason people find themselves in large amounts of credit card debt, because they maxed out the $7,500 that they had on their credit card limit, without understanding that the bill does come at the end of the month, and credit card interest is terribly high. And so again, our biggest takeaway, if you hear nothing else from this video, is that it is not free money.
Yeah. And if I can jump in real quick, I think a lot of times when people spend or overspend on their credit card, then they're like, oh, what they say, the minimum payment is $50, and so I just have to have $50. But that is incorrect. You should be paying off your entire balance at the end of the cycle.
Yes.
Every month, or however long your cycle is.
Yes.
Because every day you do not pay off your entire balance at the end of the cycle, it accrues interest. And so that's how the debilitating debt comes in, because every day you're accruing more interest, and you're trying to pay it off, but it's getting more and more interest.
Yes.
And so...
Yes. Basically, if the rule of thumb that you should always live by with using a credit card is pay it off at the end of the month. Well, I guess maybe two rules of thumb. Pay it off at the end of the month, and do not spend more than you actually have in your bank account on your credit card. So if you got $2,000 in your bank account, do not spend more than $2,000 on your credit card. Preferably don't spend... You maybe shouldn't spend $2,000 on your credit card just in general. But when you don't pay your credit card off at the end of the month, you are essentially taking out the worst loan ever. We're talking like 20 to 25% in interest that just keeps building. And that's how people, like Paul said, find themselves in really bad situations with credit cards.
Yeah.
So one thing that we want to have you do is know what type of person you are. What type of spender are you? We'll have some sort of link, hopefully, on the website or this video, however this will work, where you can take a little quiz to find out what type of spender am I. Am I someone who, like, I know I took the quiz and it says that I am a very cautious spender. I am not a risk taker when it comes to spending money. But some people aren't, and they use credit cards and money like it's going out of style, man. They'll just use it whenever they can. But yeah, really think about what type of spender you are, whether this is looking at your past bank statements or maybe talking to some of the people that know you well. Figure out what type of spender that you are, because some people, not credit card people. And some people are, and you just have to know which type of person that you are.
Yeah, and if you aren't a credit card person, it doesn't mean you can never have a credit card. It probably just means you need to have a lot more structure and guardrails in your life. People checking up on you and being like, how much have you spent?
Yeah.
Just some kind of accountability for you so that you don't overspend accidentally.
Yeah, but if you are responsible, you're only going to spend what you need to spend on your credit card. Don't overspend. Don't pay your credit card bill off at the end of every single month or cycle, whenever that is. Because credit cards can be really utilized. I know that I used mine to get points back on Amazon purchases, or I get daily cash back with one of my credit cards. So they can really be utilized in an effective way, and they can be safer if you find yourself using your credit for online purchases. That's a safeguard. If you get your credit card stolen and someone starts spending money on that, you can dispute those transactions, and it's a lot safer versus if you get your debit card stolen and they're able to get into your bank account. Then it's a lot harder to get your money back. So with credit cards, we also want to touch on debts and loans. Again, with finances in general, we can understand that loans and debts can be a scary thing, because especially with loans and debts, we're talking about thousands of dollars, and that is intimidating. But the thing that we want to encourage you with is, again, talk to people before you make big decisions like that. A lot of you maybe have taken out student loans, or maybe you're going to buy a car and you're looking at taking out a loan. So get help. Talk to people who have done this before, who have bought cars or taken out student loans before. Don't go into this blind or try to just research it yourself. Get some helpful insight. Before you just start taking out loans.
Yeah. And something with the loans, like what Stan was saying, like you probably will buy a car in your lifetime, or maybe you'll have to buy a house and have a mortgage, which typically is like a 30-year loan. But even if you don't know how much you're going to make in the future, you should know what the terms of your loan is. And so that's particularly for like student loans in this instance. How much interest starts accruing? Do you know when the interest starts? How quickly can you pay it off if you pay off, not the minimum, but like as much as you can? So if I paid like $1,000 a month, how quickly can that go away? Because like loans and debt, those can be really taxing to think about every month. Like, I still need to pay this off. I still need to pay this off. But then, for loans like the car, for the house, let's just say you're looking for a car. You get a shiny new job out of college. You're making the most money you've ever made in your life. And you're like, I want to buy, a brand new Chevy Camaro with 2 black stripes, just like Bumblebee from Transformers. You should probably hold your horses a little bit. Come on. Because you just got your job. You do know, is it steady? Is it stable? You probably want to wait a little bit just to make sure. Have you budgeted and seen how much excess you have that you can put onto a car payment? And are you taking that number and bringing it to the dealer with it in mind, or are you just saying, I'm getting that car no matter what, no matter how that affects my budget? And that's when you have people that are like house poor or car poor. You're like, I spent on the house first, and the rest of my life now revolves around that house payment or car payment.
Yeah.
And so those are things that you want to keep in mind. And then some people also stack debts or loans and other monthly payments. And so that's something that you have to look out for if that's the kind of person you are. If you think like, oh, if I take this $200 concert ticket and I do layaway or whatever it's called, and I pay it in 4 installments of $50, that's so much more affordable because I didn't budget for it. Well, keep in mind, you maybe have done that with other expenses too, and now instead of $50 for the next 4 months, you're doing that kind of stuff for like $300 for the next 6 months. And now you're spending $300 the next 6 months for something that you paid this month. And so you're kind of you're still budgeting poorly. And so I'm sorry if that's like a wake-up call to you. But that's something to keep in mind, especially for like phone payments. I think that's very common for people to put phones onto payment plans. And that's great because, again, like maybe you didn't save up. I don't even know how much a phone is nowadays, like $1,000?
$1,000, $500.
But you put on a payment plan and you're like, oh, that's definitely more affordable. But now, you need to budget for that for the remainder months. You can't just keep stacking up these payment plans.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's calm down a little bit. Debts and loans, they're a little scary to talk about, but we don't want to leave you with a sense of feeling overwhelmed with that stuff. Talk to people, get help, get advice. In all things in life, shared joy is double joy, and shared sorrow is half sorrow. So always get advice and talk to people about what you're thinking about.
Wow, that was good.
Thank you.
That's a good one. So just to kind of wrap up this talking about debts. So maybe you are someone who you do have loans. Maybe they're student loans or car loans, or maybe you have credit card debt. There are a couple different methods in how to handle paying off your debt. And one of the pieces of advice that we'll give you is pay off your debts as soon as you can. A lot of people take the whole length of their loan to pay off the debt.
Yeah.
I think both of us would agree and recommend do not take the entire, if you can.
Yes.
There are definitely some debts that, like a mortgage, where you're probably going to have to take the full 30 years to pay off the debt. But you don't have to. And so that goes with any type of debt. Try to pay your debts off as soon as you can. And one of the methods that allows you to do this is called the snowball method. So the idea behind this method is that you're going to take all of the debts that you have and you're going to list them from highest debt, so highest amount, to the lowest amount. Regardless of whatever the interest is on that debt. And rather than starting with the highest debt that you have, you're actually going to start with the lowest one. So let's say you have 3 different loans of $500, $2,000, and then $5,000. What you're going to do is you're actually going to go after the smallest debt first and only pay the minimal monthly amount due on the 2 higher ones, and you're just going to try to get rid of the lowest one first because it's easier. And realistically, that one, when you attack that one first, it will go away faster, and it will free up the amount that you were paying into that debt to now use for the second largest one. And so the idea is that you, instead of putting that money aside once that debt is done, you use the money that you were using for the smallest debt, and you just keep rolling it into the next one and the next one and the next one, so that by the end of it, you're not paying just the minimal monthly payment. You are paying, maybe 5 times the minimal monthly payment. And so that way, you're not paying the entire life of the loan. You're getting to pay it off quicker, and you're paying less in interest over the life of that loan. and you're getting your monthly income back. Because as soon as you pay off your debts, you now have more money to spend or to save in other categories. And then obviously the second way of handling debt is the highest interest. So listing out all of your debts from the highest interest to the lowest interest. And you can go about it in that ways. Obviously, with the highest interests that you have on your debts, you are going to be paying more than just the initial amount that you took out for that loan. So if you take out $7,000 for a loan and it's got, maybe 6% interest on it, you're going to be paying about $2,000 more dollars over the course of that loan than just the original $7,000. So the idea behind the high interest is you go after the high interest loan before the low interest. But realistically, mathematically, it's definitely better to go after the high interests. But practically, what most people find is that it's a lot easier to get rid of smaller debts because you just feel better once you get rid of one debt. Then it feels a lot easier to go to the next one and the next one and the next one. But again, talk to people who know some stuff about money to see what is a better option for paying off these specific debts right now.
Yeah. And then lastly, we just wanted to do a little note about pets, specifically dogs, but I think pets in general. Personally, I'm not a pet person. They make the place messy and dirty. They track in dirt and mud, leave their fur everywhere. I'm actually allergic to dogs and cats, and so, But it doesn't mean I don't love dogs. I love playing with the dog and hanging out with them. I love my friends having dogs. Mm-hmm. But at the same point, I also hate it when I'm having a great time with my friends and then they go, I gotta go let out my dog. And I'm like, we're having a great time. What's going on? But that's besides the point. We're here to talk about the financial side of pet ownership. We looked at some numbers online and asked some friends who own dogs, which, boo, we hate those. But first, there's the cost of buying the dog, which we didn't really list on the slide, if the slide is somewhere here. But that can range from, free to thousands, who knows, depending on what breed you're looking for, if it's a purebred, whatever. But after that, to really take care of a dog, we're estimating around $2,000 in expenses conservatively, much more if your dog has emergency medical issues, like they get heartworms or step in glass and need to get taken to the vet to get that looked at. There's just so much variable in there. And obviously, if you're getting a pet, you should really love it and take care of it. You shouldn't be neglecting it. And so you should really keep that in mind of no, this is not just, like something to look at. It's not a trophy, but this is a living thing, and I want to take care of it.
Yeah, and again, apart from just the financial cost of a pet, like Paul was mentioning, this is a time commitment. This is possibly an animal that you will have around for 10 to 15 years. If it lives that long, this is a responsibility that will be around for a long time. And especially with dogs, again, do you want to, go home and let the dog out every day for 10 to 15 years, go on walks, get it groomed, not just the cost of that, but the time to do it. Are you going to groom your pet yourself, or are you going to pay someone for it? If you live in an apartment, are you willing to take the risk that your animal could possibly damage property? It could tear up carpet, it could tear up furniture. And if you're a renter, you are responsible for that with your security deposit. So if the dog pees on the floor or rips up something, the carpet, you're responsible for that. And then if you move in with roommates, if you decide to go that route, again, do you have roommates who are allergic to dogs or cats? Keep that in mind, right? It's not just about the finances of keeping a pet. It's also all of the hassle that goes in with it. But if you can do it, great. Get a dog, get a cat, whatever you want. But just remember, not just money. It's also a time cost as well.
Yeah.
So
Definitely
that's
talk to someone. Definitely talk to someone about it.
Definitely.
Don't just like see a cute dog in an email from the pound and be like, that's the one I want.
Even if you can work it into your budget. Again, like if you're like, oh, I can afford a dog. I'm like, sure. You can afford a dog financially. But can your lifestyle afford a dog? And
Yeah.
some of you can't. That's for sure. So like we said, if you have any questions about anything that we talked about, I mean, feel free to reach out to us individually. Our numbers and contact information are somewhere that we can provide to you. But if you don't want to reach out to us, you can always talk to one of your campus pastors. A lot of them have a lot of knowledge on how to handle finances. A lot of them are married and have to handle their own finances themselves. So again, our biggest thing to take away with this is ask for help when it comes to money and your finances. Please don't do this alone. Successful people do not do their finances alone. They get other people involved, and they get advice, and they get opinions from other people.
Yeah. And we've created a worksheet on Google Sheets for you to go through the beginning stages of thinking through what your finances look like and budgeting. There's a core plan on there as well if you're a Corfa and want to have a core over this kind of stuff. But even if your Corfa doesn't want to take you through this worksheet, I'd recommend for you to go through it with a friend or two so that you can really think about being intentional with your money. And there's even a video up there for you to really understand how the worksheet works. It just takes your expenses from the previous month that you're going to enter in. It'll break it down for you in several different sheets, and then it'll allow you to create your own budget for the next month to see how well you do. So yeah, that'll be on a link somewhere, hopefully.
All right. Well, I think that's everything. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you around.
Now let's welcome Drew for our
Now
last
let's
piece of
welcome
the
Drew.
night. Yeah!